How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So continuing on our little journey through the professions in the War Within, taking a little bit of a first look at some of them, we're going to continue with leatherworking today. Leatherworking is much more simplistic than what we've seen with jewel crafting and alchemy in the previous days. Maybe I kind of spoilt you a little bit by focusing on those ones first, as they had quite some significant changes to them. Leatherworking is much more straight to the point as what we would really sort of expect. So we're not going to be doing anything wildly different. We're going to be responsible for making all of the leather armor. We're going to be responsible for making all mail armor, both leveling sets and endgame sets. This is pretty traditional for a leather worker to focus on the two different armor classes. We're also going to be looking at being the provider of drums. I want to just talk about drums just for a very quick second. This is one smart thing that they are doing. With materials having multiple ranks, quality 1, quality 2, quality 3, it's nice to see that they've deliberately thought about something that's going to be an item that everybody kind of wants to use. If you don't happen to have heroism or bloodlust in your group, you can use drums. Admittedly, it's only 15% haste, but the point still stands is that these are a good popular seller. People will probably keep some of them about. The importance of this, though, is there's no quality on the drums and there's no real skill requirement to make them. This ultimately means that they're quite good at just hoovering up all of that low quality stuff. It doesn't matter what storm charged leather, it doesn't matter what gloom chilton you throw in here, the end result's going to be the same anyway. Meaning that for once, people are probably going to actually want to buy up some of the cheaper quality 1, maybe quality 2 sort of overflow materials, which is quite a nice thing to have. Good way to churn through some of that extra skinning materials that kicks about all the time. We as leather workers, though, we're still going to be making things like our armor kits as well. And once again, we're responsible for quite a bit, I think 8 or 9 of the profession tools at the 2 tiers as well. So we are sticking to the traditions with the leatherworking. I'm hoping they do add a touch more sort of flavor to this, as it seems very template. It feels like they've taken the default stuff that we would expect a leather worker to have, and they've just made a War Within variation of it, and they've not really added anything new. Hopefully that can come in the future. One thing to showcase actually with leatherworking, and I hope this is something that they plan to do with some of the other professions as well. With leatherworking, you are now able to get up to 75 skill points just from the trainer recipes. For those who have played in Dragonflight with the professions, you may have noticed that you get to about skill 50 and it starts to slow down really quickly. Skill 1 to 50 you can tend to get with trainer recipes. Then you have to start looking at things like work order or end game gear crafting to get from 50 to 100. This time at least we got to 75 with just trainer recipes. So there may only be that small amount of endgame crafting we need to do to fill the bar per se. It would be nice to see them sort of flex this with some of the other professions. I was never a fan of this kind of like hit 50 and hit a brick wall design. I know it incentivized people to go and play with work orders in Dragonflight, but we all know what work orders are now. There should be a reasonably straightforward path to 100 skill points in the professions, I think, going forward. Looking at this, we are going to pretty much rely on endgame crafted gear. Of course, I still need to get some of these recipes. This is where we're going to get those final skill points from. Talking about the spec trees for a minute then. The spec trees are once again relatively straightforward to what you would expect. Learned Leatherworker is kind of our generic tree where it's going to give us the resourcefulness buffs. It's going to give us our multi-craft buffs, which will be impactful in many areas of the profession. And down the center here, although it's not yet implemented by at least the tooltips claim it's not yet implemented, is going to be where we stack and improve our concentration and our ingenuity skill. I think one really viable option for leatherworkers out there is going to be making these intermediate materials, even more so than it was in Dragonflight. We need quite many of these. We take the regular leather and hides that are going to be provided to us by skinning, and we smush them together to come up with these like these intermediates. And a recent recent pass on some of the difficulties has jacked these up to 11, meaning the chances are that we as leatherworkers are never really going to be able to guarantee top quality intermediate materials, even if you're using top quality materials to go in there, leaving me to believe that this is going to be a prime candidate for using your concentration to generate those quality 3 intermediates. And so then maybe stacking some ingenuity, stacking some concentration will help smooth this process. And I tend to believe that this could be, it may potentially be the route I go, because I'm not so savvy with the work orders, honestly. Standing around in a capital city screaming and shouting isn't my thing, but crafting some intermediates using my concentration to generate some quality 3s. Hopefully it will mean that quality 2 will still sell well enough to be considered profitable. If the only viable way of making gold is by using concentration to get quality 3s, it might not actually end up being that lucrative, but it's very difficult at this point to like really sort of suggest where the goal making exactly will be. But it might be a path for some people. You can heavily focus on this area in the Learn Leatherworking tree. We then have 2 trees for your armor proficiencies, your leather, which I've yet to unlock, and the mail. These are practically copy-paste of each other at this point. You can spec deep into the nodes and you'll get your boots, you'll get your braces, you'll get your gloves, your pants, your so on and so on. Pretty straightforward here. They've not really done much of anything. Unlocking the final node will give you the endgame recipe, and then you can get some bonus skill if you put some more points into it. To the point, actually, if we take a look at some of the endgame gear that we have access to right here, same scenario seems to apply. It looks like even when we use max quality materials, and at this point we probably would need to 100% fill this bar, have some really good profession tools and accessories up here, and be using top quality materials over here, and then we should maybe just about be able to guarantee these items at quality 5. We really are going to have to min-max in every little location to guarantee these items at quality 5. But of course, before you get to that min-max approach, you can always throw some concentration in it to, you know, generate those quality 5s for people who want them early on, and for those people who are willing to pay that little bit of a premium, because you might not be able to press the button so many times every day until you are at least fully specced out. So there's not too much more to say really with leatherworking. It's kept pretty straightforward. It's kept pretty much the same. I don't suspect they... well, let me put it this way. I would really hope that they add a few more bits of flavour to it, as it seems very template, very default right now. The closest thing to any flavour they've done is there's 3 different sort of faction-esque specific armors that you can work towards. Arathian, Nerubian, and Beastly Bulwarks. They've actually changed the name of this since yesterday. There's 3 different specs you can focus towards in one of the spec trees, and there are some slightly more themed items that are within those categories. We have our weapon in sorry, not our weapon. I read the tooltip then. I nearly said weapon grips. These are our embellishments. There's a couple of these you can pick up, which might be good ones to craft and sell up on the auction house. And there's a couple of interesting items that are within each of these categories as well. I would also point out that some of them seem to be already, we're starting to get some of the recipe details coming through. Not for everything yet, mind, but we are starting to see some of them. And this is indicating that these are sort of boss drop items, so expect the raid to drop some of your patterns, and if they end up being the good patterns that people want, you might need to make sure you head into the raid, or choose to pay a pretty penny to buy it on the auction house from somebody that's already done the raid. That might be a viable option. But for the most part, boys and girls, that is leatherworking. There's not really much more to it to say. There's no sort of new intricate systems to talk about. They've kind of just got the template build in place, and my hopes and desires is that they add a little bit more flavour to it to give it that sort of vavavoom sort of feel. Drawn crafting and alchemy that we've focused on previously have had some nice new little additions to make them feel fresh. the moment, leatherworking needs that freshness added to it. That's probably my take. But leatherworking's a big profession for me. It's sat on my main character. I play a hunter day by day. I've had leatherworking and I've had jewel crafting on that hunter for years, so I suspect I'll be diving much, much deeper into this as a profession. So stick around if you're interested in more. I will leave it there for today though, boys and girls. Thank you all for watching this video. Please remember to hit that like button on this little mini series if you're enjoying it. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. If you're new around here, consider hitting that subscribe button. But I've been Manthieus. I'll see you all next time. Peace.